Welcome in everybody. So my name is Jesse. I am your virtual adventure guide here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And I know we've got a really, an audience today that has been joining us all year long in most cases. So thank you so much for continuing to join us as we showcase the world's coolest scientists, explorers, organizations around the planet. We are in our home stretch. It's December. We've got a few more weeks of programs. And I'm really glad that of all our programs, you chose to join me for my special one with you guys today. So welcome in live. Welcome in on YouTube, everybody. We are going to have a Kahoot today. So if you guys want to pull up kahoot.it, put our game pin 6750045. I will share that again before the Kahoot, but we'll have a quick 5-question fun quiz between the talk and the Q&A portion. And we're also going to have a Padlet with lots of opportunities to keep the excitement going after the broadcast is done. Now with that, I'm going to turn it over to myself and dive in with today's program. Today we are going to talk about aliens and asteroids together. So I'm going to pull up my screen share here. We're going to dive in. You're not going to see me for a little bit, but that's okay. Let's do this thing and get underway, folks. Awesome. All right. So welcome in, everybody. As I said, today I wanted to dive in with a bit of an inspiration from my childhood. Now, when I was a kid, I loved sci-fi movies. My dad, in a bit of questionable parenting, introduced me to some of the most hardcore, amazing science fiction films from when I was a really, really little boy. So I got the chance to watch alien movies, asteroid movies, all sorts of crazy things all the time when I was a kid. And it was the best childhood ever because science fiction gives us this chance to envision other worlds, to explore threats to life on Earth, and to see how we might react as humankind. This has been a topic of huge interest to people for a really, really long time. So in fiction, in 1897, we have the first really good example of this with War of the Worlds. This is the first time the idea of aliens invading the Earth really entered our minds as a possibility. And things really haven't let up since. You can hardly go to a bookstore or theater anymore without encountering some crisis heading our way from the universe, whether inanimate like a rock on a collision course or a fleet of extraterrestrials bent on our demise. What, after all, is Avengers Endgame but a story about the world's mightiest heroes here to fight off an alien menace? So the biggest movie of all time is about fighting off aliens. So I wanted to take the time today to explore some of the big threats facing our planet from the universe and dive in with how terrified or not terrified that we should feel. We're going to go with the common themes of being struck by a space rock or attacked by aliens. Let's go see. So first, we're going to dive in with a meteor strike. Now, Deep Impact, Armageddon, Don't Look Up. Fiction is full of these stories that are teeming with meteors or rocks or bodies coming from the cosmos and wiping out life on Earth. And this concern is not unfounded. We literally would not be here today if it weren't for the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous caused by a Mount Everest-sized rock that slams into the Gulf of Mexico at about 20 times the speed of a bullet. Not incidentally, before I dive in with the extinction of the dinosaurs, I've always loved the art associated with this. It always, I swear, features T-Rexes screaming as this fiery rock blazes across the sky in the background. It's a very underappreciated genre of art. And so, what would this actually have been like? In fact, you wouldn't have a slow-moving, burning rock going across the sky for a long time. It would have been instantaneous and cataclysmic. A beautiful sunny day, the dinosaurs in the Gulf of Mexico sipping drinks, sitting at the beach, suntanning themselves, and then absolute apocalypse the next. All life near the impact zone would be vaporized. I've heard it compared to like plastic going up in the flame. If you've ever seen plastic go in a fire, that's how fast things would have just turned to ash. As it strikes, it sends 1,000-foot tsunamis around oceans all across North, South America, Africa, Europe. It rains down fiery rocks around the planet. This is a really, really scary, hardcore event. So could this happen again? Could we be wiped out by a rogue space rock or have to mount a mission to destroy it? So let's unpack the science a little bit. Breaking it down, there's a few big questions that we want to ask ourselves. What's out there? Are there things out there in the cosmos that might hit us again? If there are, how often do they hit us anyway? If they do hit us, are any of them big? Are there any big things likely to hit us? What are we doing about it? And what would we do if we were to discover the worst, like a dinosaur-sized meteorite heading towards the Earth? So let's dive in. First, a point of differentiation. Asteroids are space rocks. They're made of the same stuff that moons and planets are made of. And comets are largely space ice. They're made of water, just like water on Earth. The tail that we see on comets, you might have seen this in pictures before. On the bottom of the screen here, we've got a comet tail. It's literally the bits of the comet that are heating up and spewing off into space. Asteroids don't do that. Either one can hit the Earth if it's on a trajectory or a course that intersects with the orbit of our planet. Kind of a fun fact that meteor showers, which we can predict every year, we know that the Perseids are coming or the Leonids are coming, is literally the Earth going around revolving around the sun and coming back into the same area that a comet or meteorite was there before. So we're sort of crossing around every year. We end up back in the same debris field, and that's what causes those little things to go into our atmosphere. So how many are there? Through the use of telescopes, scientists have found about 30,000 objects in our solar system, which is a lot, but it represents the tiniest fraction of the millions or even billions we think are out there. The fact of the matter is, space is really big, and some of these objects, even the really big ones, are much smaller than our neighboring planets and moons that we're still discovering to this day. Pluto wasn't discovered till 1930, and Eris, who many of you won't be familiar with, I didn't even know about Eris until a couple of years ago, it's about the size of Pluto, and we only found it in 2005. That's crazy, a huge, huge thing. So, quick note too, some of you will have seen in movies and TV shows, people in spaceships like the Millennium Falcon here dodging asteroids. It would not be like this at all. Even though there's so many of these things out there, they're really, really widely spaced apart. And so you have to be extraordinarily unlucky and asleep at the helm of your spacecraft to crash into one of these things. They are very, very few and far between. So let's dive in. How often do things hit us anyway? All the time. The thought that we're being constantly bombarded can be a little disconcerting, but the main thing to remember is that most things that hit us are exceptionally small, so small that they don't even make it to the surface. Instead, they burn up in our atmosphere as meteors or shooting stars. So that's right, the captivating traces in the night sky that you see, if you've ever seen a shooting star, are just rocks burning up as they hit our protective atmosphere. So how much material total? NASA estimates that about 100 tons of material, 100 tons, drifts down to the planet every single day, which you can think of sort of oddly as 25 space elephants of material. So these are really tiny things, but are any big things likely to hit us? When NASA finds an asteroid that's of a size big enough to cause serious damage on Earth, and that we know has an orbit that causes it to come close to the Earth, we call it a potentially hazardous object. In the scheme of things, we haven't been looking for these things all that long, more or less the last few decades. And the more we look, the more we find. There are now more than 2,000 potentially hazardous objects identified in our solar system, with over 150 of those big enough to not quite cause something on the dinosaur level, but to radically change life on Earth as we know it. Even the small ones that don't make the cut aren't worth sneezing at either. Now, some of our students today will be old enough to have seen this when they were really young. Some of you, this will be before your life. But in 2013, a meteor exploded over Russia. You can ask your teachers about this. It was on the news all over the world. And it was about 20 times as powerful as an atomic bomb. It didn't even hit the surface. And it was just 20 meters across. So it was about 1.5 times or twice the size of your classroom. And it was 20 times as powerful as an atomic bomb. So with that sobering thought, what are we doing about it? And the answer is we're looking up. NASA, the European Space Agency, the Canadian Space Agency have all dedicated programs seeking out these potentially hazardous objects and trying to understand where they are and where they're going. When you hear in the news about something that we know will just miss the Earth in a few months or years, we gain that knowledge from these efforts. There are people with job titles that probably sound very technical, but in actuality, they're just meteor hunters. Like that is their job. They get to search the skies, looking for meteors, understanding where they're going so that they can alert the rest of us. So what's good too is that we can go back in the past and see how often do big things hit us anyway. NASA's got a Center for Near-Earth Object Studies, and it notes that every 10,000 years or so, we can expect a 100-meter object to hit the Earth and cause local disasters. Now, 10,000 years doesn't sound too long ago, but that is an exceptionally long time period. We hadn't developed writing, and we were just starting agriculture. So people as a species were just starting to farm 10,000 years ago. So it's a long time to continue to develop technology to understand these things and more. So as NASA puts it, no one should be overly concerned about an impact. you are way, way more likely to have even really obscure accidents like getting hit in the head by a coconut or have a vending machine fall on you. I hope none of you in your classes today are worried every day about being hit in the head by a coconut. And so if you're not worried about that, you should not be worried about a meteorite hitting us either. But the risk over the long term, over that 10,000 year time span, is enough that it really pays to be prudent and to have a plan in place to act if we should find a large stone on a collision course with the Earth. So what would we do if we found such a stone? Let's see. No, these don't seem like good ideas necessarily. How about something with cool astronauts? So this seems more like it. This is something that you might have seen in books or movies. Let's send the best of the best to the rock in space and let's blow it up with a nuclear bomb. Now, it turns out an explosion is actually quite difficult to predict how it will impact something. And as I've heard it put before, you run the risk of just creating a bunch of now highly radioactive things that are still barreling towards the Earth. So that's no good. But fortunately, a few months ago, we got a chance to see what we might actually do with something called the DART mission. So I want you to picture a boat setting off the eastern coast of Canada or the United States. Let's just say it's leaving from Newfoundland or it's leaving from New York City. And your goal is to go across the Atlantic Ocean and get to Ireland. Now, your boat's a special boat. Your boat can go as far as it wants, but it can't steer at all. So if the boat takes off and it goes perfectly straight, great, it hits Ireland. But if as you're leaving the harbor, a small wave nudges you a few degrees to the right, well, now you end up in Morocco. And if your boat gets hit by a bigger wave and it nudges you 20 degrees to the right, well, now you end up in South Africa. Well, that's no good. That's a very, very big difference that is accounted for by a very small shift at the beginning of your journey. So the same is true of rocks in space. Their orbits are huge. They go around the sun just like the Earth does. And the thought with the DART mission was to see how much the orbit would shift if you slammed a spacecraft into it, if you had a car crash in space, basically. So we launched this mission to crash a many, many $million probe into an asteroid to see if it would change its trajectory around the sun. It was an amazing mission. It succeeded spectacularly. And we found out that, yes, if we launch one of these missions, we can really change how much an asteroid's orbit is. So it's really hopeful to think that if we ever were to discover something really big, we could send more probes like this, we could send bigger spacecraft, and we could knock it out of its orbit. So in short, everything should be fine. Don't look at your days spending looking at the sky with concern. No need to worry about meteorites. Don't worry about those coconuts either. How about this? Should we be worried about this instead? It looks pretty scary. Well, unnecessary too, but as we all know, fiction on screen and in books is littered with aliens of every kind. And so what should we feel? Terror that will be invaded, eaten by malevolent forces, or maybe excited to meet up with beings who could share their expertise, their technology, and their magic healing fingers like ET with us. So as with the threat of meteorite impact, we're going to unpack the science a little bit again. So our first big question, of course, is, are we alone? If we're not alone, where are those aliens? If there are other life in the universe, where are they? Why aren't we talking with them all the time? Are we searching to find life out there? Spoiler, yes, we are. If we made contact or found something, what then? And what would happen if aliens just arrived? If they show up at our door with their invasion fleet, what happens then? So first, are we alone? I'm going to do something now, a little dorky, and if you want to join me and be dorky with me, I'd love it. So I'd like you to all stick out your arms as far as you can from your body right now, and pretend that you're holding a grain of sand. Pretty tiny, right? Hold that grain of sand up to the sky, straight up above you, and try to think of how many grains of sand, if you were just holding it between your fingers, it would take to fill up your entire field of view. So you're holding that little tiny grain of sand. How many grains of sand would it take to fill everything that you're seeing above you at arm's length? Thousands upon thousands in every direction from the one you're holding. So NASA's new James Webb Space Telescope, in one of its first published observations, did just this. It stared into the equivalent of a grain-sized jet black portion of the sky and took a picture. This is that picture. Each one of the points of light in this picture isn't a star like the sun or like that you see when you look up at night. Each one of these points of light is a galaxy with 100 billion stars each, like our Milky Way, many of which of these stars have planets and moons of their own. There are more stars in this picture than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the world. I've always taken the view that given the odds, there must be life out there. Here on planet Earth, life couldn't wait to get started. Our planet formed 4.54 billion years ago, and pretty much the moment our planet cooled enough to have oceans, life appears. So the moment the chemical conditions existed, life appeared. And if you look at all these stars, I find it unfathomable to think that we are the only thing in the universe. When we bring on astronomers and astronauts, they almost all echo this view. Space is so big that it's so vain to think that we'd be the only thing that exists as life on planet Earth. So if they're out there, where are they? Imagine you finish up this presentation with me and go to a lake or a river or an ocean nearby if you're on a coast, and you got a cup. You got a cup of water or a mug of coffee if you're a teacher, and you head down and you dip your mug into the water. And you look in the water and there's no fish in your mug, there's no whales. Can you conclude from that there are no fish or whales in all the world's oceans? No, of course not. It's ridiculous. Because relatively speaking, that's what we've done to look for life in the universe. Space is big, unfathomably big. People tend to assume that if life was out there, we'd be talking with it by now. But let's take a look at why that might not be the case. There are 3 ways that we can discover life in the universe. 1, we could find small things or unintelligent life on another world, like antelope on Neptune. Well, if there are antelope on Neptune, the challenge then is that we need to get there. We don't magically know if it's there. We've got to go explore and find it if it happened to be there. Second is that life is intelligent and it comes to us. Same problem. I think by now we can safely conclude there aren't any intelligent civilizations on Mars or Neptune because in some fashion we would have heard from them by now. So if any intelligent life wants to get here, it wants to get to us, it has to get here. If we use as a basis our own technology and the fastest spacecraft we've ever built in the history of humankind, that spacecraft took 9.5 years to get to Pluto. How long do you think that spacecraft, 9.5 years to get to Pluto, for the fastest thing we've ever created ever? I want you to put in the chat, StreamYard and YouTube. 9.5 years to get to Pluto, fastest spacecraft ever. It was so fast, it could go around the Earth in about 1 second. 1 second to go around the whole Earth. How long would it take to get to the nearest star? Not like a far star, the closest other star other than our sun. How long do you think? 9.5 years for Pluto, nearest star. Any thoughts? What do we think? Mr. Markwick, I can bring you guys on. What do you think?
Anybody want to guess how long?
I know.
Maria?
Maybe
10 years?
I know.
10 years? So 9.5 years to Pluto. Oh,
I'm going to guess it's like a million years.
okay. You're both interesting. We got 1,000 years for Mr. Rand's class. So yeah, we've got a variety of options here. 54,000 years. 54,000 years to get to the nearest star with our fastest spacecraft. So even if they wanted to get here, it's pretty inefficient to come and check if someone's home. You're not going to go 54,000 years in your fastest spacecraft just to go, oops, there's no life here. So what then? Well, you've got to listen in. So are we searching for life out there? As the last few decades, we've been doing 2 things. We've been launching these incredible missions to Mars to try and learn if life might have existed there before or still exists today. These are missions to look not for civilizations, but for bacteria or things like them, very, very small alien life. Meanwhile, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence scans the skies, listening for signals that might come from intelligent life. Contact is my favorite movie ever that talks about this. And what are we listening for? We want to find signals that unequivocally come from something intelligent. If you listen to the Earth and heard a few radio signals, if you were an alien on the nearest star and you listened to the Earth and you heard some radio signals, well, radio signals come off lightning, they come off all number of things. But if you picked up a TV program or a podcast or a direct message to alien life, well, that could only come from something capable of communication and of intelligence. An extra challenge is listening when someone's broadcasting. Earth has us. We're a species that has the potential to send messages out to the stars. But that's not been the case forever. The Earth's 4.5 billion years old. Humankind's about 300,000 years old. We've only been able to broadcast signals that can be picked up by aliens for about 125 years. So if an alien were listening to Earth 10 million years ago, they would have heard nothing. They would have assumed, oh, there's no intelligent life there. If the aliens were listening 500 years ago, they'd pick up nothing. There's no intelligent life there, but we were there. We were there, but we weren't broadcasting yet. So the same applies to anyone who might be listening, that we might be listening for. Maybe there's intelligent life, but it doesn't send signals. Maybe it was the biggest civilization the universe has ever seen for 1 billion years, but died out 10 years before mankind sent out our first broadcast. There's so many hypotheticals on what make communication difficult, it's hard to cover them all. But I want to stress that even if there are millions of civilizations out there in the universe, it doesn't mean we would contact them. But what if we did? So interestingly, we've already had a couple moments where we've been worried about this, or at least getting in contact with life. When the Apollo astronauts, the Apollo 11, the first people to walk on the moon, returned, there was fanfare from all over the world. There was a ticker tape parade. They met the presidents of all the countries of the world. But that happened 3 weeks after they got here, because we were really worried that they might bring back a moon virus or a moon bacteria that would infect all the people on the Earth. We know now about infecting all the people on the Earth. We've all lived through that. So we were really worried about that. So they put all the astronauts in quarantine. They put them in a big case for 3 weeks to see and make sure they weren't infected with anything. And so similarly, as we hunt across the solar system, when we send robots to Mars, we make really sure that those robots are not covered in bacteria or Earth life. Because imagine if we found life on Mars. We were all excited. Oh, it's the greatest discovery ever. And we found out, oh, it was just one of our robots that accidentally dropped it on the ground. Well, that's no good. When Saturn's $4 billion spacecraft on the right here was finished, they didn't just let it go there forever. We think that there might potentially be life on one of the moons of Saturn. And so what we did is we steered the spacecraft to blow up on Saturn to make sure that nothing that was on that spacecraft could possibly end up on one of those other worlds. If we found small life like a bacterium, I think the first response, though, would be sheer excitement. We're not alone. There's life elsewhere in the universe. I think the moon landing itself sort of was one of the discoveries that helped people realize how precious and wonderful what we have on Earth here is. If we heard from a distant civilization a sort of hello from aliens, much the same. The challenge then would be starting to communicate properly. If we hear a message that comes from a planet that is 4 light years away, it means it takes 4 years for the signal to get here and 4 years for us to send back an answer. If you think lag on a Zoom call is bad, imagine waiting nearly a decade to get a reply back. Like, this is one of the challenges that people don't think about when they think about interstellar communication. So what would happen if they just arrived? Never mind, they've got spacecraft that are way faster than us, and they just show up here in their fleet. Now, in fiction, this is almost always a bad thing. They blow up the White House, they invade New York, they vaporize people. Fiction is full of bad aliens that are out to conquer or destroy mankind. And truly, no one has an answer for what would happen if aliens arrived. If you ask 100 different experts, they'll give you 100 different answers. For me, I look to what one of the best scientists of all time said, and his name was Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan wrote this. Now, you don't need to read this whole thing. This is from his book called Pale Blue Dot, one of the best science books ever written. And it applies brilliantly. The idea is that I don't think, he didn't think, and I agree, I don't think there would be destruction. I don't think aliens would travel thousands of years, possibly even hundreds of years, to come here and blow stuff up. Why would they do that? It would be for science. It would be for communication. It would be life recognizing that there's life elsewhere in the universe and that you can learn and gain from connecting and collaborating. And I think, again, 100 different answers, but I love this idea. This is if people went to other stars, and I think the same message applies for if any aliens wanted to come here. So, should we be worried about aliens? Even less than meteorites, I'd say. We already determined that coconuts are scarier than meteors. I think meteors are scarier than aliens. Despite their menacing roles in all our movies, we are extremely unlikely to ever interact with them. And if we did, I really think it would be a magnificent moment for mankind. We're getting better at searching and planning more missions to look for small life nearby and intelligent life across the universe. And I sincerely hope that we find them in my lifetime. Now, before we wrap up, we're going to go to our Kahoot pretty soon. I'll bring up the game pin for everybody so you guys can get ready with this too. I'll do a few questions in a minute. But I wanted to share a few quick bonus slides. So, what would aliens look like if we ran into them? Now, movies have an answer for this. And it's always a dude in a suit or just a dude. It's like a person, which is ridiculous. They're always so close to being human. They stand on 2 legs. They've got 5-fingered hands. They've got 2 forward-facing eyes. Sometimes they're just clearly people. Is that likely? I don't think so. On Earth alone, look how many extraordinary forms of life there are that are so radically different from one another. One planet, and everything living on Earth shares a common ancestor. So things as distinct as a sequoia tree, from a jellyfish, a whip scorpion, a water bear, we've got a goblin shark here. They're all related. These are things that are related to one another, and they look so radically different. And so if we're to find alien life, we have to broaden our gaze. The circumstances that led to the evolution of us took 4.54 billion years to play out. As scientists have noted, if you rewound the tape of life on Earth and started from 15 million years ago, it's really unlikely that people like us would return. Maybe we'd be really smart birds. Maybe we'd look a little different. Who knows? But the fact of a creature with 2 legs, 2 arms, standing bipedally, very smart, is exceedingly unlikely. Now, I know a lot of our classes are younger today, but Project Hail Mary, the Expanse series are some really great examples of this out there. One other bonus slide before we wrap up, the Voyager Golden Records. I can't pass up the opportunity to talk about these anytime I get the chance. It's my favorite thing we've ever done in the history of science and exploration. So in 1977, way before your lifetimes, we launched the Voyager probes, 2 incredible spacecraft that went, at the time, further than anything we'd ever created. They were unmanned vehicles that would take a look at the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. The pictures that you know about these, if you've seen them, came from these spacecraft. And ultimately, we knew that these spacecraft would end up in the endless space between the stars. So not wanting to waste the opportunity, Carl Sagan was the lead on the mission to put each of these spacecraft, on each of them, a golden record, a time capsule, and a message in a bottle for aliens in far-off star systems, perhaps billions of years in the future, that might discover this spacecraft floating in the void. It's a token of our sounds, our science, our images, our thoughts, and our feelings. On the record is a map that would be readable by any sufficiently advanced civilization that would tell them where the Earth was. There are songs of the Earth on this record, including birdsong, whale calls, footsteps, laughter, greetings in 55 languages, and the EKG, so like a brain scan of a person. To me, it's one of the most hopeful and profound things we've ever done as a species, to send a record of ourselves and our world out into the universe in the hopes that one day, perhaps eons after we ourselves no longer exist on Earth, something will learn a little bit more about us and our home here on planet Earth. It's just beautiful. So where does this leave us? Stories of alien menace, rogue space rocks, other threats are wildly popular for a reason. They give us an escape, and at their best, give us new ways of thinking about these big threats and questions of the universe, like, are we alone? I hope by now you're intrigued to learn a little more and aren't too worried about anything. We shouldn't expect invasions or collisions anytime soon, and we're doing an awful lot to plan and prepare and reduce the likelihood of some of the worst case scenarios. So to me, it's just endlessly fascinating to think of ourselves in the universe through thought experiments like these. Anytime we realize that we're just one life form surrounded by so much space, more than we can really comprehend, and that there are things out there so much greater than anything we can conceive of, it's just fascinating and wonderful. So I always like to leave there, hopefully encouraging you guys for some great questions and to have a lot of fun. And with that, I'll end my screen share and we will dive into our Kahoot. So I'm going to bring this up. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm excited for your questions in a sec as well. But let's do our Kahoot together and dive in. It's going to take me a second to pull this guy up, and then we will be good to go. How many of you are in our Kahoot? Let's see. 57. Wow, that's exciting. For those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. Now, you don't win anything, but you do win everlasting bragging rights, okay? So everlasting bragging rights from me if you get our Kahoot. I'm going to get us underway in about 2 seconds here. When my screen, there we go. Now you did it better. All right, let's do it, folks, and dive in. And then question time. And we'll have a Padlet to share even more after the broadcast is done. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Dun, dun, dun. This one isn't for any points. So it's just, what do you think? I've convinced you. Aliens are totally out there. Do you think there are aliens in the universe or not? No right answer. They certainly are, or I'm crazy and we're alone in the universe. Now, I've decided, as I said, to make every picture in this Kahoot a T-Rex screaming with a meteorite coming in, because it's my favorite genre of art. I told you, they're all T-Rexes screaming. What do we think? Aliens or no? I'm so interested. Most of you say yes. 20 of you say no. That's interesting. Okay, I like that breakdown. All right, no leaderboard just yet. We're going to go to question number 2. Now, these are the ones worth points. Blowing up an incoming asteroid with nuclear bombs is the best way to go. True or false? This is a weird picture of a T-Rex screaming because he's got this brachiosaur beside him. I don't know why they're hanging out together. But 10 more seconds. What do you remember early on in the talk? Yes, good to blow up? No, better options out there. And the answer is false. False. We don't want to blow them up with nuclear bombs. We want to just nudge them. We want to push them to the side and change their orbit so that they don't hit the Earth. All right, Speedy Leopard's in our lead with Prairie Panda right behind. All right, quiz number 3. Get those questions ready too. What's the name of the wicked cool telescope that we just put up in space? Is it the Hubble, the James Webb Space Telescope, the Planet Seeker 9000, or the NASA Cosmic Array? That sounds right. NASA Cosmic Array. Maybe. I don't know. What do we think? 6 more seconds. 6 more seconds. Thanks to all our YouTubers for playing along too. All right. We got folks in Kamloops, Ghana. We got Chalk River. James Webb Space Telescope. Everyone, when they're done this program, should look up. I'll put up the thing later. It's jwst.nasa.gov, and it's amazing. Rapid echidnas in our lead. I love echidnas. They're one of the coolest animals in the world. Okay. How are we exploring other worlds to look for life? A hint. Every time I do a Kahoot, there's an answer with this being the answer. Is it with robots on the surface, listening in with radio receivers, looking with telescopes, or all of the above? Maybe. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. 69, there's so many of you. Thank you so much. Oh, you guys are so fun. All right, 77 answers, and the answer is all of the above. We're doing everything. We are spending a lot of time and effort to try and learn about life in the universe. This will be one of the greatest discoveries ever. Rapid Echidna has a tight lead over Mountain Raven and Cute Goose. Going into our final question. If we found aliens, they would absolutely look like us. It would just be me, but maybe without the beard. This is my favorite T-Rex picture, by the way. I saved it for last. What do we think? Aliens are going to look exactly like people. True or false? Spoilers with 5 seconds to go. 82 of you. Awesome. Get ready with your questions. Mr. Hancock, I'm coming to you first in a minute for questions. The answer is, of course, false. Aliens would not look like us. It would be ridiculous to think that aliens would look like us. It's crazy. So, number 3, Cute Goose. That's not a goose. I don't know what that is. That's an alien, actually. That's ironic. Mountain Raven is second. Did our echidna friend win the day? Barely, by like 18 points. Rapid Echidna, way to go. If you are any of these people, let me know who you are in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. And we are going to dive in with questions. Mr. Hancock's class, Georgetown, if you guys want to come in first and take us away, you are good to go.
Hey, Jesse, thanks for having us as always. Fun fact, I Googled the double asteroid redirection test.
Yes.
Google's got a fun thing where the probe actually goes across Google and it bumps Google and it realigns Google, which is kind of cool. Something to check out later. Our question, though, we were wondering, though, is because aliens probably don't look like us, do we think they would be able to adapt to our atmosphere and live with us?
Ooh. So it's funny, but science fiction always has the aliens going to each other's planet and often speaking the same language, which would also never happen. It really depends on the sort of ecosystem or atmosphere that you evolve with. And I mean, if you take our own atmosphere as an example, Earth is the only place in our solar system that humans could go and survive. If we walked on Mars, we'd need a spacesuit. If we walked on Venus, we'd need more than a spacesuit. And so it's really unlikely that other things, if they were to evolve on another planet, would have the same sort of atmosphere and eco sort of area around them as we have on Earth. So I would say no. There's no right answer to this question. We don't know. Maybe all things that evolve in the universe require 20% oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere. We don't know that, but I would say that the money is on no. Mr. McIntyre's class, room 311. Welcome in Winnipeg, guys. Hi.
There we go. Yeah.
Hello. Do you have any questions? Aliens, asteroids, all of it?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. How long will it take the meteorite to hit us again?
The meteorite to do what again?
To hit Earth again.
To hit Earth again. Oh, the next time that we should expect a meteorite? We don't know. That's the thing. And that's why it's so important to have so many people that are up looking and making sure that these things aren't going to hit us. All the time we're finding new ones. There was one right near Halloween that we didn't know was close to us, and then we found it. So that's the thing with meteorites, is that one could hit us tomorrow. I mean, it's a scary thought, but in theory, one could hit us tomorrow and we might have no idea that it's coming. And so it's really important that there's tons of people that are out there looking for them to try and make sure that if any are on the way, we can launch a mission like DART to move Google and move the asteroid all at once. But hopefully not a long time. NASA again notes that it's about every 10,000 years that a big one hits the Earth. We've had some pretty big ones hit us a lot more recently than 10,000 years ago. So hopefully luck's on our side with that. You never really know. Great question. Mr. Margaret's class, Sudbury, come on in. Hey.
We have Callan here. He wants to ask to you.
What's the biggest star in the universe?
The biggest stone in the universe?
Star.
Star. Oh, I don't know. I can find that out for you, though. I know that our sun is a really, really tiny star. So we're like a yellow medium star. There are stars that dwarf the sun, and there's some really spectacular YouTube videos actually that show like the Earth compared to Jupiter, compared to the sun, compared to big stars. So I'll make sure you get that after the broadcast. What was your second question?
No, that was it.
Oh, okay. Sure. I thought you said you had two. Perfect. Miss Bullock's class, joining us, Katala, Georgia. Welcome in, guys. Unmute your mic. Come chat with me. Hi.
Hi. If we were to find aliens or any source of alien life, what would be our first action to find them?
Like, what would be the first thing we do? What do you think? I mean, there's no answer to this. I think that instantly, if someone were to identify alien life somewhere, they would tell everybody. Like every government in the world would know that within seconds. Everyone would know that within seconds. But what's the best way to do that? If you do it on social media, maybe people panic. Maybe only certain people know for a little bit and they figure out how they're going to tell everybody else. Maybe the aliens show up and just appear in the sky and then we all see them at once. Like, what would you do if aliens arrived tomorrow? What would you do?
I didn't think you'd ask me what I do.
Yeah, right? Like, this is the thing. And no one has a right answer. There's no government in the world. There's no president or prime minister or anything that has a plan for this, really. So it's a great question. And it's one, again, this is such a hypothetical field. It's so hypothetical to see how we'd act in any of these situations. And it's why science fiction does it so well, because it can address all these concerns. It can look at all these different ways. And that's why I love movies and books and trying to learn more about these ideas. Miss Breeze's class, I'm going to come to you guys in just a second. We got so many groups today. Mr. Shadow's class is on YouTube. They want to know, Cadence want to know, how long have I been interested in learning about aliens? I've always been interested in learning about aliens. Aliens rock. Aliens are so cool. The thought that there's life elsewhere in the universe is one of the coolest things ever. I really do think if we discover life in the universe, that would be the greatest discovery ever. Never mind like intelligent life, green men, cool prongy things, like bacteria. That would be so amazing to learn that we are not alone in the universe, no matter what it is. So cool. So from a very little boy, 4 years old. Miss Breeze's class, welcome in, guys. If you guys have a question, come on up. You're good to go. Hey.
If the sun explodes, how long would it take for us to repopulate, to rebuild?
So if the sun explodes, we're in really, really big trouble. This is actually in my original version of this talk. It was longer, and I talked about the sun and some of the things that it could do to us. The good news is the sun won't explode. We have a very, very good understanding of the physics of stars. We know what they do. We know how they change over time. The sun will never go supernova. It will never explode like you might have seen in pictures of other stars because it's not big enough. Only really, really big stars have the power and the physics inside them to explode when they die. What the sun does also incidentally does wipe out the Earth. The sun gets a lot bigger, swells, and will get so big that the Earth will end up inside it. It's very hard to rebuild after that. And then it deflates and becomes something called a white dwarf. But we know when that's going to happen. And that's going to happen in about 4.5 billion years. Billion. Humans have been around for 300,000. So by the time the sun's ready to engulf the Earth, we will be long gone. If we are still around as a species, hopefully we are, we will be on other worlds, we'll be on other planets. We might even be in different solar systems all across the galaxy by then. It depends on where our technology goes, but fortunately the sun will not explode. I can promise you that. Mr. Dunn's class, Sudbury, grade 4s. Hey guys.
There you go. You can wave, guys. Okay. Isabel had a question. You want to come up, Isabel?
Hey, Isabel.
Has a meteor ever hit Canada that was big enough to affect it permanently?
Ooh, so you guys would know this. This is Sudbury. Sudbury is like the ultimate example of this in the world. You guys are on, and you actually probably know this better than me. It's been a while since I've looked into the science of this, but all of Sudbury, that whole region there is built on top of either rock that was blown away from a meteorite impacting, and so they're able to have all the mines that they have there because the cooler minerals are now exposed in a way that they aren't elsewhere. I don't know the exact details, and I hope you take the chance to look this up, because Science North is one of the best places in the world, Dynamic Earth too, for exploring these stories. And so you're in one of the best places ever. Pretty much everywhere on Earth at some point has been impacted by meteors in a way that would have impacted them forever. My favorite example of this on Earth is Antarctica, because if I'm looking for a meteorite and I'm walking around Canada, well, there's a lot of rocks on the ground in Canada. So how do you tell? That one's from Earth, that's a meteorite? You can't really. It's very hard to do unless you really know what you're looking for and you have scientific equipment. But if you're in Antarctica and it's a mile thick of ice over the whole continent, and you come upon a random rock in the middle of the snow, that's a meteorite, but there's no other way it could have gotten there. And so that's where scientists go to look for meteorites, is Antarctica, because it's the only place that you can readily say, hey, I know that that rock's a meteorite. We found meteorites in Antarctica that have come from elsewhere in space, from the moon, and from Mars. So like another rock hits Mars, blows off a chunk of Mars that flies over and hits the Earth and lands in Antarctica, and we know that. That's amazing. That's like one of the coolest things in the world. But keep looking. Very cool question, guys. All right, Mr. Rand, Miss Miller, I'm coming to you in 2 seconds. I will note we're at the 40-minute mark. So our Padlet for today, if you want to share all the questions after the fact, is Dino Scream. Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat for everybody. Again, I love the Dino Scream art. But we'll put that in the chat for everyone. If you have more questions, I'd love to field all your questions after this broadcast is done. So please do send me all of those. We're going to take a quick question from YouTube, and then we're going to head to our last 2 live classes. Time flies when you're having fun. Mr. Spanish' class, grade 10, science. Career path, what does a day in my job look like? I'm a science communicator, so I'm not an expert in astronomy. I'm not an expert in anything really. Biology is actually my main focus, but I love science, and I love finding ways of sharing the stories of science, which can sometimes be challenging or difficult to understand with the public. So my main role is here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I get to connect scientists, explorers, real experts around the globe with kids through broadcasts, and I do that every day. I handle teacher registrations, I find the speakers, I pick the stories that I want you guys to hear because I think they're the coolest stories in the world, and I love hosting. This is my favorite thing in the world, is to be talking to you and getting people excited about these things. Career path, I started off with a degree in ecology and evolutionary biology as my background. I grew up watching every sci-fi, every science and nature thing of all time. Steve Irwin and David Attenborough are my heroes. So every chance I get to share these stories, I do. And I've created science festivals, worked for science groups, and over the last few years, I've had the thrill of being involved with Joe since the get-go and Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So message me, I can answer more about that with the Padlet, but that's a good start. Mr. Rand's class, now your camera's off, but I should be able to hear you. Hey, welcome in. Oh.
There we go. Sorry.
All
right, so Peter has a question about asteroids.
How
Perfect.
fast do asteroids travel?
So fast, like crazy fast. It's really hard to fathom how fast, because there's nothing in our lives that is as fast as an asteroid. A bullet. So when you shoot a gun, which classically, if you see someone shoot a gun, you don't see the bullet travel through the air like a football. Meteorites travel 20 times as fast as that and more, which is crazy. Like it's like thousands of kilometers per second, which is unfathomable. I said our fastest spacecraft could go around the Earth in about a second. The meteorite that wiped out the dinosaurs could also go around the whole Earth in 1 second. It takes a plane like 25 hours to do that, and a meteor could do it in 1 second. So that's how fast they're going, and it's quite extraordinary, really. Great question. Miss Miller's class, unfortunately, this is going to be our last live one, because I know you guys need to go, but this has been so fun, and just bug me on the Padlet. All the answers there, I promise. Miss Miller, come on in. Hey, guys.
What if a dinosaur extinction level asteroid hits Earth? So, like, what would the impact be?
It would be pretty bad. I mean, this is like the worst possible scenario of anything that I talked about or sort of skirted during the broadcast. You know, now civilization is so connected, and so humankind would survive. There'd probably be a few people that survive. Most people on the planet would not live if something the size of the dinosaur impact hit the Earth. Most of the life on planet Earth wouldn't survive. When the one that wiped out the dinosaurs came, 70% of all the groups of things died. An estimated like 90 to 95% of every living thing died because it caused the impact, it sent raining rocks all over the world, and it blotted out the sun. So much ash went into the atmosphere that no sunlight or very little sunlight came through for years. So plants can't survive without sunlight and animals can't survive without plants. Now, humans are very, very ingenious. So if something ever happened like that, we would likely survive. And one of the things that a lot of people that are going to the moon and the Mars, we're going back to the moon very soon, by the way, going to Mars, have thought is that if something like that ever did happen on Earth and we had other groups of people on other places, that would allow us to survive no matter what happens. So we're really hoping that never happens. We're really hoping that if something is coming our way, and the one that wiped out the dinosaurs was huge, so it's much easier to spot than the smaller things. So hopefully we'd have the technology like the DART mission to deflect it and avoid that from ever being a possibility. If it happened, it would be the worst thing ever to happen in the history of humanity. So we're really, fingers crossed, we don't ever have to deal with that. And again, NASA says, don't worry. So the people that are the experts say, don't spend your days thinking about that or worrying in any way. Cataclysms are pretty much by definition very, very unlikely. Okay, 45 minutes in. I know you guys have to go in a second, so please do send me all the questions on the Padlet. I'd love to have you guys join there. Let me pull up something really quick for everybody. I really encourage you all to check out the James Webb Space Telescope as much as possible. Its website is jwst.nasa.gov. It's the coolest thing we've ever put into space. It's super, super neat. So I really encourage you to check that out. Let me find two more quick things, and then I will be done, I promise. Spotthestation.nasa.gov. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah. Tonight, here, this is your mission for tonight. Spotthestation.nasa.gov. There we go. Every night, every day, anywhere in the world, you can go to this website, type in your city, and find the International Space Station. Like you can look up in the sky, and it'll tell you like 8:30 at this angle, you'll see the space station. It's so cool that you can see people in space, and you can find out where to see them every day with that thing. And I also really encourage all our students, teachers, just check this out at least. It's a free app. It's called Star Walk 2. It's my favorite tool for exploring the universe around me. I really encourage you to check it out. Guys, this is the end of our broadcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know you could have chosen from so many world experts and amazing people, and I really appreciate you spending some time with me. So I'll just bring you in, not to say a big thank you to me, but to say farewell. Mr. Hancock, room 311, Mr. Markwick, Miss Bullock, Mr. Reeves, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Dan, there's so many of you.